paid almost $2,000 to support my close friend, but I'm being disrespectful when I don't pay for her dad's work? TLDR, my entitled friend, flatmate, kinda rightfully, didn't feel like she owed me anything for staying on the lease for 2 months longer than I had to, which I did to support her during a stressful phase, but she called me ungrateful and disrespectful when I wasn't willing to pay her father for his time and effort when helping her move out of the shared apartment. I finally told her to go check her fucking attitude. This will be a long read as it's still fresh for me and might come across more as me venting. Thank you for understanding. I was planning to post on AATA first, but after even my therapist lost her composure and muttered a PITF, note, I have yet to meet a more professional mental health worker. When I told her about my falling out with an old friend and having all, and I mean all, of my friends and family members congratulate me for my sticking up for myself. Also note, my family can be brutally honest, so I expected some criticism, and the lack thereof did strengthen my back. I decided to let it stew for a while and come here to tell you a tale of almost grandiose entitlement. So buckle up, get a good cuppa, and follow me as I recount to you the tale of my entitled flatmate. Setting, I'm a student, aka short on money, who should be writing her master's thesis, and I come from a rather privileged background, middle class, but I'm not from an English-speaking country. The last 2.5 years I had been living with one of my closest friends I met in high school, and for 2 years it was great cohabitating and sharing our experiences doing our masters and becoming fully autonomous and functioning adults. After 1 year of living together, I started dating my current boyfriend, but the dynamic in the flat barely changed, which my friend, flatmate, which I will call Veruca, like the entitled character in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, just because I can, admitted herself. Then almost 2 years after moving in together, Veruca started dating her current boyfriend, which in itself was completely fine and I was extremely happy for her and her newfound love. But then my parents had to make the hard decision to leave the country and move back to my mother's home country, as life here as a semi-retired couple is becoming almost impossible to finance. As my whole family has a long and traumatic history with migration, this uprooting was hard on all of us and threw me even deeper into a depression I have been diagnosed with during the same period, alongside a newly diagnosed neurodivergency. All in all, a very stressful time for me and my family. On top of this, my parents left back a large house with a garden, and as we all loved the memories and stories connected to it, we weren't ready to sell it. Subsequently, the most logical and practical solution was for me to move back in. So, by the end of last August, I told Veruca that I would have to move out soon-ish, but that I was flexible, and as I didn't want to leave her hanging, I could afford to pay my share until a certain point. Why? Because I loved our friendship, appreciated her support, and felt like she deserved not having to deal with the search of a new flatmate, a smaller flat right during her finals. She told me her last exams would be in February 2024, so I promised to support her financially until the end of March 2024 by paying my share of the rent. Spoiler alert, the last exams were in December of 2023 and she never told me about this change. And that's where it all started. The initial problem, not even 2 weeks after I told Veruca I had to move out, she suddenly started spending 5 to 6 nights a week at her BF's place. And that felt like a slap in the face. I told her due to valid reasons I had to move out, and she then was never around anymore without giving me an explanation for this sudden change, leaving me to pay to stay alone in a flat that was supposed to be shared. Months later in November, she'd asked me if her staying at her boyfriend's was okay with me, but at that point my resentment subconsciously had grown so much I wasn't able to formulate my emotions properly, and TBH, what was I supposed to say? No, stay alone in your bedroom 3 nights a week? Either she wanted to be in the flat or she didn't. That was her decision, and I don't see a way how I could have felt less lonely coming home to an empty flat almost every night without forcing Veruca to do something she obviously didn't want to do. During that time, I started working on myself, doing a lot of self-reflection, and I finally started with therapy. Feeling left behind by my parents as well as my allegedly closest friend made me find the strength in myself which I needed for the process of figuring out what my boundaries are, and my partner and some of my beautiful friends supported me immensely, which made my progress even bigger, a process which Veruca did not follow along because she was never around and barely ever made the effort to check in with me. Before you all come at me, whilst in the beginning I was kind of waiting for her to come back so we could resume our routine and friendship like before, after a while I did start to check in with her more through texts, but as I didn't feel like I got the same effort back, I started pulling back more. This isolation on top of my lack of proper and open communication surely did not help this whole ordeal, and I do see where my behavior contributed hugely to the falling out. This is something I'm actively working on, but as I'm a lot of negative things but not entitled, this post will not revolve around my negative traits. To make this part short, me not being as bubbly and open in our flatmate group chat anymore, and not sharing my life with her as much as I did before, was noticed by Veruca, but for the longest time, she didn't comment on it. At the same time, I started saying no more. I didn't, for example, volunteer to go purchase household items as much anymore, and I just generally drew boundaries in situations I had never done so before, something which seems completely normal in a healthy relationship. But I barely ever stood up for me. I was almost always the one to cave in, to give in on demands, or take a step back. This would then lead to me acting out and being passive-aggressive when I was being pushed too far, which was extremely toxic and unproductive. Proud to say, that's not the case anymore. So me pushing back when I was not okay with a situation on top of us not communicating properly anymore lead to a first falling out in February. We both aired our grievances back then and apologized for our mistakes, and for a few weeks, it seemed like everything could work out. Unfortunately, an apology only holds any value if the future actions reflect that. So disrespect. Whilst I made an effort to act more friendly, e.g. using more emojis and writing longer answers, and be more open in our mostly written interactions, something she expressed wishing to receive more from me, I did not feel like there was any change in the behavior towards me. I had expressed my sadness about feeling left behind by my parents, and that my closest friend had suddenly dropped me during exactly that time. While Veruca did say she was a terrible friend for leaving me to deal with all of it myself, she never, I repeat, never checked in with me after February, while other friends texted me to chat and gave me the feeling they were there for me emotionally. I did not receive a single supportive message from her. Suddenly having to take care of a big house and garden, not complaining about the fact that I'm allowed to live here, pay high bills and insurances, keep on top of maintenance and repairs without the physical support of your closest relatives, while continuing your job and studies, maintaining a good social life and romantic relationship, and taking care of your own mental health is a lot. So having friends just shooting a quick message from time to time did mean the world to me. Then came the week of apartment cleaning before the handover of the keys. The whole process leading up to that point had been nerve-wracking for me, as I was not on the lease, only subletting, but paying the same amount and being responsible for the same damages, and therefore was not involved in any of the communication. So I got all the necessary info last minute. Me no like. Something that irked me immensely. Veruca had asked me to leave some of her stuff and boxes in my, at the time, already empty bedroom. I first declined as I still had to clean my walls and didn't want to climb over her stuff and potentially damage it, but after that was done, I texted her to put in there whatever she wanted until the day I needed to finish cleaning my room, but to please not lean anything against the walls as I had just spent hours scrubbing off dark marks. Her answer, yes, sure, I was intending to put everything on the floor anyways. All good and dandy. We split the remaining cleaning chores and I walked in on my day off to get as many of my chores done as possible. What do I see? A load of heavy cardboard moving boxes folded open and leaning against my walls. I texted her that I didn't appreciate this disrespect of my wishes. She deflected by saying she didn't think it was a big deal as there was a towel tucked in behind the boxes. Zidi. I bit my tongue, not pushing it further, and just got my shit done. Apart from cleaning the balcony, I finished all my chores that day and even did some of hers, such as filling in holes in the living room walls left by nails and painting over the spots so the color of the paste didn't stand out against the white wall. Just stuff you do to get shit done ASAP, you know? A few days later, I go back with my boyfriend to finish my last remaining chores. I scrubbed the balcony, and let me tell you, I was damn proud of my work. Veruca's parents and her brother arrived before her that morning to help out, and all seemed good. But once Veruca and her BF arrived, the mood seemed to change. Until this day, I can't put my finger on it, but something was off. Then the little jabs started, people walking around on freshly cleaned floors with their dirty shoes, the father snapping at my boyfriend when he asked to lend a tool, or at me when I asked to quickly use his ladder as all the chairs had been moved out already without my prior knowledge. Just petty stuff. Again, I bit my tongue, knowing that in a few days everything would be over. I finished what I had to do and my BF and I left ASAP. Then I got a message. One of the trash bags had been leaking, leaving a stain on the wood floor. I had noticed a stain the day I went to clean the first time, not knowing where it came from, and had sent Veruca a picture of it. Now there was a second, larger stain, and apparently it was from my bag. The only bags I had filled with garbage from the balcony, which were not wet, were standing on the other side of the living room. She knew it, I knew it, but apparently this bag was mine. Not willing to let this potential permanent damage be deducted from my part of the deposit, I refused to take accountability for trash I had no involvement in, and it was oh so conveniently not possible to look into the bag anymore as it had already been taken out. As this post is already way too long, I'm cutting out the other petty shit that went down, like Veruca expressing her wanting to take shared stuff with her and mentioning no payment towards me, but when I expressed wanting to keep something, she asked me for financial compensation. Or me offering for her to keep all the kitchenware we bought together, but when I asked to only take the pizza cutter with me, she used it a lot, and didn't expect to have to buy a new one. Or that I had to buy trash bags on my own dime. Let me tell you, shit like that is so expensive, I don't get it, because she would take care of other stuff, But when I took those bags home with me as, I paid for them and didn't need them in the flat anymore, she'd ask me where they were as she needed them. Just little stuff that you can brush aside, but once it starts to accumulate, it lets resentment grow quickly. And this is the part you're here for. Z entitlement. As I said, Veruca's parents came over to help her clean up and move. Something I didn't know until the morning of was that her father was taking our garbage with his transporter to the disposal center for us. I expressed my gratitude for his help and confirmed that I would even pay something for gas, because crazy prices. I did ask though if it wouldn't be more convenient to just buy prepaid garbage bags we could just leave on the side of the road and which would be taken away a few days later. Price point, $20. But no, that wasn't good enough. Please don't ask me why, I don't know. Consequently, I was asked on my calm Sunday evening to pay $100 to her father for the disposal, gas, and his work. Mind you, I never asked him for help, he did not take over any of my chores, and I was not informed prior to that moment that his oh-so-precious time would be billed, as I would have never agreed to this. And I still can't wrap my head around a father asking his daughter, who he has a decent relationship with, and her flatmate, who had no say in this matter, to pay for the time he spent helping them. My parents had stored some of our furniture prior to our move 2.5 years ago. Should they have billed us rent for the space they could not use in their basement? So when I refused paying such a crazy amount and told Veruca what I was comfortable paying, the $20 for the prepaid bags that would have been needed for the amount of shared trash, and an additional $10 for gas, she called me ungrateful and disrespectful, and that her father felt disrespected by my behavior. I repeat, because I didn't want to pay for work I did not ask him to do. The height of impudence wasn't even that I was insulted for something that could be based in a simple misunderstanding. 2 months back, when we had the first, smaller falling out, I asked Veruca for a bit of friendly appreciation and recognition, because I spent almost $2,000 on our friendship to support her and pay my share, while she finished her studies and searched for a new flat and job, and I only got loneliness back. Back then, she said that she was appreciative for everything, which she never really expressed in actions, just in words which kind of lost their meaning after a while. But as she never asked for me to do that, she did not owe me anything. But now I am the ungrateful one? He'll know. So I called Veruca out on her bullshit, compared the two situations, explained again why I was not okay with paying so much to her father, told her to go check her fucking attitude, and left our flat chat. It felt great. And then the shock of the realization hit. I had just killed a 10+ year friendship, so the only natural reaction my body knew to this was to have a nervous breakdown, which gave way to an anxiety attack. Not so calm Sunday evening anymore. By now, I have taken off the rose-tinted glasses and can start calling out so many situations where I did not have an equal part in that friendship. Input from my friends and family helped me a lot, and I feel more and more okay with the situation. Veruca did message me in our regular chat twice, first to confirm that the handover went over smoothly. I could not be there as she didn't confirm the time with me, and I had meetings I couldn't, and also wasn't willing to move, another grr moment for me. And then to send me a payment slip from the deposit site, which was over $70. The confirmation for me that my solution with the prepaid bags would have been way cheaper after all. Veruca also told me that during the last few weeks or months, she always felt like she was a shitty friend when interacting with me. Something I definitely did not transmit as I actively pushed to be more open again and took a step back when drawing boundaries so that our relationship wouldn't suffer even more than it already had. Which simply told me that this was her bad conscience making her feel that way, as she knew exactly how she had let me down and continued to not pull her weight in the friendship. And lastly, Veruca wanted me to contact her again when I feel open to the conversation and ready to reflect on everything. Like I was the one insulting her on a nice Sunday evening? I refused to take over this responsibility to essentially revive the friendship, as this way she could solely blame me for the failed friendship, as it would be on me to restart the contact after a cooling down period, and made it clear that unless she showed insight in her screw-up and I got an apology for this hypocritic offense towards my character, I was not seeing any way how we could see eye to eye again. She simply replied that obviously we both couldn't work through this ATM, and then she thanked me for our wonderful time together and wished me all the best, something that was called manipulative by a few friends of mine, but I refuse to see it that way as I don't want to taint our last, rather positive interaction. I realize I contributed my fair share to this falling out, and I have a list of things I'm now working on to avoid creating such a situation again. I also realize that this has been one hell of a venting post, and I'm grateful if you read it all. I'm on my way to the airport, so I'm sorry if I won't be able to reply to comments, but I wish you all the best and will read your messages once I have the time and internet connection again.